right. Happy Monday, happy Monday, happy Monday, and welcome to the Prince George's County Faith-Based Advisory Board Economic Development Subcommittee last session of 2020. And we praise God for all that God has done with the Faith-Based Advisory Board and with this subcommittee. And we are excited about our final presentation for 2020. As most of you know that have followed us all year or most of the year, the Faith-Based Advisory Board was established by our tremendous county executive, Angela Also Brooks, to ensure that faith-based organizations have vital information and that there is a bridge between the faith-based community and government to access whatever information we need. And as we know, the Faith-Based Advisory Board was established a couple of years ago, but in this time of this pandemic, in a season that we've never been before, the Faith-Based Advisory Board has been a trailblazer in providing information to churches and ministers and pastors and nonprofits and just anyone who needs the information. But we certainly have a mission to make sure that our churches in Prince George's County are empowered. Our overseer of FBAB is none other than Pastor Charles McNeil, and we thank God for him today. My chairperson or co-chair is none other than Dr. Lady Nakia Wright, who has been a trailblazer in making sure that we stay organized and provide this vital information. And I am certainly been honored to work with both of them throughout this year. As we were working and developing the FBAB, we understood that there was so much information that we started to have to break it down into pieces. And so we established various subcommittees, and I have been blessed to participate and lead the Economic Development Subcommittee. And with me, as always, are my team members, Team ED, Pastor Albert Chapman and Pastor Rudolph Brooks, just tremendous team members who have certainly been making sure that we get this information to you. We've had information about housing. We've had information about mortgages. We've had information about eviction prevention. We've had information about credit. And all of that information is posted on our YouTube site. So if you want any of that former information, by all means, please go to our YouTube site. You can watch it at your leisure, but tremendous information about small businesses, how you as churches, how you as entrepreneurs, how you as individuals can thrive and survive during this pandemic. And so now we're at the end of 2020, and last month or a couple of weeks ago, we did a really comprehensive session on credit. And we know that finances have been challenging for you. As churches, finances have been challenging. As individuals, finances have been challenging. If you're a small business, we know that finances have been challenging, and everyone has been sitting waiting for this economic stimulus package to be passed. But as we prayed about what we should talk about today, we wanted to help anyone that's listening begin to think about your finances and think about planning, because the Bible says that you need to write the vision, make it plain, that if you want to run with that vision, you need to write it, you need to plan. Planning is critical to success in anything that you do. And planning your finances is critical. And having good banking relationships as a business owner, as a church, is critical. And I, as everybody knows, I own and run KCG Consulting Services, and that's what my business does. It helps people get that vision on paper and write that plan. But what I found over the last year is that a lot of people didn't have it. A lot of churches really didn't have it on paper. They did not have a financial plan, so that when things got a little rough, they did not know how to make that transition and pivot in an emergency. So we have some experts with us today, and I am really excited about it. Some of them are new relationships for me. Some of them are old relationships for me, but I think we have the best and the brightest that we could have today to talk to you about banking and funding. So as you begin to make your plans for 2021, you are prepared. Now, I will say this, we have, and I'm going to pass it over to Pastor Chapman to introduce our guest today, but I am a PNC customer. And we have PNC Bank with us. And I actually just talked to my banker this morning at my branch because my younger son is an entrepreneur and he's about to open up his small business banking account with PNC today. And when I talk about customer service, when I talk about advice, when I talk about accessibility, when I talk about responsiveness, when I think about banking, I think about PNC. So we are blessed to have not only representatives from PNC today, but also one of the best startup funding entities, I believe, in Prince George's County with us today. And that's FSC First Bank, who has done so much for startups and businesses in this community, and especially during this pandemic. And so I'm very, very thankful for our guest. I'll turn it over to Pastor Chapman to introduce them more specifically, and then we'll proceed.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. We talked about the importance of having a partner. And today I'm excited to present with us two great partners. I was laughing because I also have an account with PNC Bank. And so I'm very happy with what PNC Bank does for us. But for those who are listening, one of the most important things about having a banker is because there are things that you don't know that you don't know. And I have a lot of gray in my beard now, and a lot of that's because I didn't partner with people that knew things that I didn't know. And so having with us today some great team members that I hope that you'll take just grab your pen, your paper, and take a listen to and jot down some great information they're going to present to us today from the banking aspect, as far as how to set up an account, how to maintain your account, and things like that, and what accounts you may need, and so much more. To actually funding your business. We found out when I was talking to who's going to talk to us, Ms. Catherine Clay, in a moment, we found out that there are some specialists that actually help to find funding for your startup, your businesses that are getting established. We talked about a couple of months ago about different business owners who are just starting their businesses because of the pandemic. And you need to know who these people are, because sometimes it's hard to come up with the initial capital to start your business, but they have great means and great opportunities to do that. So today I'm so excited to introduce two great organizations that's going to help us. I ask you to grab your pen. Don't just listen to this. Grab your pen and paper, jot this down. You'll never know when you may need this for somebody else. But I promise you, getting a partner with a true good bank, such as the two organizations we have on today, it will make life much easier for you, and it will help you to learn the things that you really don't know. Just a quick note, in my business, as you all know, I'm a real estate investor. And one of the things I had to learn quickly was to create a separate account for those who are depositing money with us, our tenants. Whenever your tenant was renting a property from us, we had to put money away, and we had to put that money away in a special account. Well, I heard that, but I really didn't know how to do that. And because of my great banker, it saved me. So some of this gray over here isn't gray because of that. But what I was sharing with you is so important. Listen, grab some your pen and paper, and I promise you'll get some information. I'm going to start off by introducing Catherine Clay with PNC Bank. She is phenomenal. She has so much information. She helps our community on unique levels. And so, Catherine, I'm going to turn it over to you at this time. Please introduce yourself and share with us some great information that'll help keep all of our beard from turning gray.
Thank you so much. And I'm so pleased and proud to be able to participate in what I hope will be just the tip of the iceberg of a very informational session. I have with me from PNC Alexis Jackson, who is my subject matter expert, or SME, as I like to call them. Though on behalf of PNC, I do a lot of work in the community. I'm on a board with Reverend Chapman right now. PNC has been a banking partner with transitional housing and other programs with Dr. Anderson. I've served on the board of FSC First with where Eddie Tuvin is going to do a lot of work. So it just really gives me pleasure to be able to do work in the community that serves to benefit residents of the community, particularly those that really need to get a leg up and information to really improve and take advantage of the full socioeconomic opportunities that are offered not only in this great country, but in this great county of Prince George's County. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Alexis, and I am going to share my screen. So Alexis, if you please just let me know when to move forward, okay?
Absolutely.
And let me do that right now.
And while Catherine is sharing her screen, I just want to echo with what Pastor Chapman said. I have worked with Catherine Clay for years, and she doesn't just talk the talk. PNC really walks the walk in terms of making sure that your banking needs are met and that the community's needs are met. And you want to make sure that you connect with a bank that truly delivers what they have on paper. And PNC and Catherine Clay certainly is that entity. If you have questions, please make sure you put them in the Facebook chat. We're going to leave all questions to the end. But as Pastor Chapman said, now that the screen is up, I'm going to turn it over to Alexis. Get your pen and paper ready because we have a lot of great information for you. Alexis?
Well, yes. Hello, everybody. I'm Alexis. I work with PNC Bank. I'm in the business banking division, and I cover the Prince George's region. Well, half of it. I have another partner that covers the other half. What I'm going to talk to you about today is pretty much what banks look for when it comes to lending, whether that's lines or loans of credits. Of course, before I start, I do want to mention that you do want to establish your relationship, which of course, we would love for you to come to PNC first, but we usually look at lending once the business has been established. So a couple of things that I will be discussing today is I did put it on the agenda. Of course, some options for startups, loans that are greater than 100,000, the financials that you would need to typically need to get together for any institution that you are looking to do lending for, types of business loans that banks usually lend for, and usually the decision time frame of when you'll get a decision for whatever product you are looking to do. And a couple key tips that a lot of clients don't know about, but it's very important to do to get a fast turnaround when applying for a loan or a line of credit. Okay, Catherine, you go to the next. Thank you. Good personal credit. Of course, that goes for any type of lending. You got to have good personal credit, good business credit. Of course, we usually check Dun & Bradstreet for business credit. For personal, we usually check 2 of the 3 current providers like Experian or TransUnion for the personal credit, and then time in business. Time in business, I'm sorry, Catherine, you can go back to the.
Oh, sorry.
One more. So time in business, usually banks, to do a conventional loan, we will want you to be in business for at least 2 years. And then of course, personal strength, that is leverage, things of that nature. And then also experience. Experience is really important as well, because that kind of makes the bank feel warm and fuzzy that you know what you're doing and that the money is going to be applied towards what you were initially applying for. So if it's for a piece of equipment, you know, it's good to have really good industry experience. Okay, you go to the next one.
So we're gonna dialogue today because I want to make sure that everybody's really grasping on this. So Catherine, can you go back to that slide for a minute? Because this is really critically important. And in working with businesses, particularly kind of in the pandemic, PPP, have a lot of people who were in business but didn't have an established business. Right. So they might have been doing work as a sole proprietor, but didn't get their EIN in a separate business. They were doing everything under your social security number. And so a lot of what Alexis is talking about is something that needs to be part of that planning, and you need to have documentation for this. With PNC, you can't just walk in with an idea. and say, I want you to fund it. I think Eddie's going to talk about that a little bit more. And so as you're looking to pivot, make sure that you have this in place and written and planned. Make sure that you have your certificates of good standing and those documents in order. Make sure that you filed your annual reports. Make sure that you have an updated resume so that you can give them personal experience and demonstrate personal strength. They're not going to go on the web. They might double check, but they're not going to look to find out who you are. As a good business owner, you need to have these items in place in order to make the banker feel comfortable in proceeding with the loan for you.
Thank you. That was really good. All right, Catherine, you can go to the next one. Thank you. So a couple options for startups, if we're looking at doing bank lending, is usually business credit cards. That's what I usually start my clients out with, especially if they haven't had previous business credit before. That is the fastest, just like with your personal, it's the fastest way to build your business credit. So when you are opening up a business account, you also want to apply for that credit card as well and start using that card for the purchases for your business. Usually, typically, and with PNC, the credit card can range between $3,000 to $25,000. If we're looking to do a small business line of credit, usually anything that is under 100,000 is going to be unsecured. So that means that we'll just do a UCC filing, and then those funds are, you can use that for whether that's inventory, small purchases that you're going to pay back within a month or two. You do not want to have this line maxed out. That's not something you want to do for a line of credit. It doesn't really look good in the bank's perspective when it's continuously maxed out. And then also for startups, the SBA loan. So basically, it's typically backed by 50% by SBA and the other 50 is by the institution, and that is usually between the same amount, $20,000 to $100,000. Okay, you can go.
And then let me jump in here while you're going to the next one. So for those who are listening, because during the pandemic, there's been the conversation about the PPPs and the EIDLs. There is another lending product that the SBA has for small businesses that is distinguished from those two. It was a very detailed application, and it requires very detailed attachments to that. And so again, having a banker walk you through that, having that consultation, sitting down with Alexis and getting an idea of what's required would always be important. But don't confuse the Payroll Protection Act program that has been released as a result of the pandemic, or the economic injury disaster loan, which is an emergency lending product, again, that was developed for the pandemic, with the SBA loan. The SBA loan is available and has always been available and will be continuously available throughout and after the pandemic, and it's possible to apply for both. So make sure that you have a clarity about that as we're going into 2021.
Absolutely. And then any loans that are greater than 100,000, it usually has to be collateralized by one thing or another, whether that's either with a personal home, business, real estate, inventory, equipment, or accounts receivables. Now, generally, accounts receivables, we would use that for lines of credits as well, if it's over 100,000. If we are looking at collateralizing any, like the equipment, of course, if you're purchasing a piece of equipment, that equipment is going to be the collateral for the loan, as well as, yep. So yes, that is, I'm sorry. Okay, Ms. Catherine, you can go to the next slide. Loans under 100,000, what we would usually ask for in regards to financials is usually most recent business and personal tax returns, updated personal financial statement, which is just a form that pretty much breaks down how much debt you have, how much cash you have on hand, investments, things of that nature. So we can get a full outlook of what you have personally as well as on the business side when we look at your tax returns. Loans that are greater than 100,000 usually does require a full financial package, which is usually 2 years personal and business tax returns, updated PFS, which is that personal financial statement, a balance sheet. So all of the debt that your company has financed in the past that you're still paying on, we want that to be on the balance sheet. And then of course your not on the balance sheet, but I'm sorry, the the business debt schedule, which is another form that we ask for. And then of course your interim financials, which is usually your balance sheet and your profit and loss or income statement. And then of course we want a breakdown of the collateral that you're going to use either to back the loan or the line of credit. Okay, you can go to the next one, Catherine. Types of business loans that banks lend for. Of course, we do business credit cards, lines of credits for short-term working capital needs, vehicle and equipment loans, real estate purchase or refinancing, business purchase. So if you're looking to purchase a business, and make it a second location, we would help you do that. Partner buyouts, which we usually do funnel that through our SBA partners. Business debt consolidation. So if you have, multiple pieces of equipment, you want to consolidate that into one payment for a lower rate, then we would look at doing that as well. And then of course, startup business loans, but that would more than likely be funneled through our SBA partners as well. Next slide, Ms. Catherine. All right. Usually the decision time frame, and this is a little bit pre-COVID. So we're in the mix of PPP forgiveness and things of that nature. So these time frames, be flexible. Anything less than 100,000, it usually takes about 1 to 2 business days. Anything less than 100,000 through our SBA channels, usually 3 to 5 business days. 100,000 to $1 million. I would say definitely 7 days, 7 to 10 days at this point. I've done a couple and it's taken that long. And then $1 million to $3 million. It could take about 7 to 10 business days as well. I will push that back maybe out to 12 to 14 days, just because, our underwriters are in the midst of doing PPP as well. And then if you have anything greater than 3 million, then you wouldn't be talking to me, you'd be talking to my other partner who's in commercial, because you're probably out of my segmentation at that point. But don't worry, we can still help you out, and we'll make that warm transition over to my partners in commercial banking. And then a couple tips. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yep. A couple tips, key tips when you have an application in the system is try to be as fast as possible to answer follow-up questions that your banker may ask that the underwriter wants to know. Be completely honest about credit issues. Like, we're not judging you, we don't, but we want to make sure that we're putting you in our best foot forward for you, because we are technically your advocate at that point once we're entering that application into the system. So the more information we know up front, the better we're able to help you out, and be as detailed as possible. Just like Sharon was saying, it doesn't matter. Having more information is better than having not enough information, because trust me, you don't want me emailing you 20 times a day like, hey, well, I need this information too. It's just be as detailed as possible. It makes the back and forth a lot less, and it definitely will help your loan be approved or decision in a more timely manner. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Phenomenal. Thank you so very much. So the a couple of things, and Pastor Brooks, Pastor Chapman, even Eddie, Catherine, jump in. Just want to have a brief discussion before we pivot to Eddie. A lot of times, churches as well as small businesses want to run right in. They say that they need $1 million, right? Everybody needs $1 million. I would love to have $1 million, but I can't pay $1 million back right now. Maybe next year I'm gonna claim it. But so one thing that businesses have to understand is you have to be realistic about your requests, right? It's not just about what you need, it's about what you can afford. And that includes interest, that includes obviously your income, that includes your ability to service the debt that you are actually about to attempt to secure. And so again, having that conversation, that foresight and that planning is so critical before you walk into the bank, so that you are realistic about the requests that you're making. And it's possible that you might ask for a number and get approved for something less, but you want to make sure that you're not over borrowing. You don't want to overextend yourself, whether you're nonprofit world, whether you're church, or whether you're in small business for yourself. So that's something very, very critical. The only other thing that I would say is that what I've experienced with a lot of clients during this PPP and SBA process is that you don't have the documentation. So you haven't filed your tax returns. And then sometimes the tax return income does not equate with the amount that you're putting on your application. And sometimes with the SBA inquiries, they will ask for proof of the income that you're stating on your application. And so all of that has to match. And so making sure that you have business returns is critical. And I would even jump out there to say, and I'd love anybody to, again, jump in, having an accountant as a small business is critical. Because, I mean, I'm an attorney by trade, I'm a pastor, and I own my own business. I am not an accountant. And so I have an accountant that helps me keep all of this straight and gives me the advice, or at least the documentation that I need to make the right decisions. And so as you are either thinking about going into business or you're thinking about partnering and having a lending institution assist you through this process, I really would recommend that you invest in accounting services because there will be a lot of questions that bankers have in this process that might be, and I hate to say it this way, but kind of above your pay grade, right? If this is not your industry, you can talk about your business, you can talk about your vision, you programmatically, you have it all together. But when it comes down to the black and white numbers, which is really the most thing that the bankers care about, does it pencil? How did you arrive or derive these numbers, arrive at or derive these numbers? If you can't answer those questions, again, it gives them some concern about whether or not you're going to manage the money correctly if you can't explain the financial picture. And just because you are great in the programmatic or the vision of your business, you're a chef, you can cook, but that doesn't mean that you're an accountant, and that's okay. Don't try to be an accountant, be the cook, be the clothing maker, be the visionary, the jewelry maker, the hairstylist, whatever it is, and connect yourself with an accountant or someone that does finances so that it makes that lending process easier. So that's my 2 cents. Anybody else want to jump in before we go to Eddie? All right, take it away, Eddie.
Good, then I get to answer. I get to change my presentation so that I can talk a little bit about that, because that's an important topic. Let's see if I can get full screen. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yes.
Top of the day to everyone tuned in. So I'm Eddie Tuvin. I'm the Chief Lending Officer of FSC First. We're an affiliate of the Prince George's County government, and I act as the Chief Lending Officer to oversee what we do as far as the various different types of loan programs. And I'm the face that, along with my partner, Stu Smith, we are the public-facing members of the group, which is a small organization of 12, majority minority and majority women. My email is really simple, et@fscfirst.com. So anyone who wants a copy of this presentation, just let me know and I'll be happy to send it to you. I want to first talk about Sharon's comments. So one of the first things that I teach in what I've been doing for decades now as a banker is that the importance of getting a relationship, it used to be called relationship management, and that's what we call business bankers. And the importance is described as follows. And this is going to be one of the best days that I've ever used this line that I created years ago. You need to be in the right church on the right day with the right preacher, sitting in the right pew and in the right seat in order to get that loan. And what that means is not all bankers are the same. Alexis Jackson is a fantastic banker, but she knows her limitations. She can't go over 3 million. And she also knows what she knows in terms of industry. And not every banker knows every industry. So if you have a restaurant versus an auto dealer versus a general construction company versus an import-export food business versus a small manufacturing organization, you may need a different lender. And the problem right now that we're facing is that lenders are so scared that they're going to lose their job, that anything that looks, smells, or moves around like a loan opportunity, they're grabbing it and they're putting it on their pipeline and they're presenting it at their weekly pipeline meetings to tell their managers, yeah, I have a pipeline, please don't fire me yet. However, they may not even qualify those loans. For example, SBA loans can only be used for for-profit entities. And if you're an investment, type of a borrower and you have, say, a shopping center that you've rented out to other people, it doesn't qualify for an SBA loan. So I heard one person got tied up with a bank at one point for 9 months where they were waiting for that. So that's number one. Number two, what is debt service coverage ratio and why is it important for you? Debt service coverage ratio means that if the bank's going to charge you $1,000 a month for your principal and interest payment, that your business needs to throw off $1,250, which is 1.25 times more, to cover the debt by a 1.25 debt service coverage ratio. If you as a borrower take away anything from today's meeting, take this away. Because when you get in front of the lender, you need to know that number. And you need to be able to tell that banker, I know I can make this payment. I've calculated what it's going to be. I have my pro formas. I have my, all of my assumptions. And you better be able to defend your own assumptions, not the assumptions drafted and written by you from somebody else. Along with that, on a similar deal, on exactly the same transaction, one borrower may qualify for the loan, another borrower may disqualify, only because the cost of their personal expenditures is different. In one case, the business may be able to handle the $45,000 a year that this particular borrower needs in order to cover their debts. But the person that goes out and gets that $1,800 a month lease for a car that they can't deliver food in if they own a food business, takes this massively high level of debt, gets rejected because they can't get covered. So my goal today is to talk about FSC first and give you a menu, a snapshot of what we have to offer so that you may think about whether or not we can help you. It's also important to us to help create wealth. And so for us, when we start talking about a loan program, which is the SBA 504 loan program, I'll get to in more detail at the end, it's because we believe that if you own your own property, you can also create wealth, not only through your business, but also by building up equity in a real property rather than leasing it to somebody and paying it off. So at FSC First, we provide various different solutions. We work in conjunction with local governments in the state, and we help with the initial analysis of loans. We're not a direct bank. We're a certified development financial institution. We do provide lending under the SBA 504 loan program and under other loan programs, but we're non-depository. So for example, we don't compete with our partners like PNC Bank because we'll never take depository relationships. We don't offer credit cards, etc. We've assisted 2,000 businesses with 121 million in approved loans. And since the beginning of the pandemic, what we've been doing is providing grant funding to local eligible businesses to help people stay afloat. So we're one of the few banker types that have seen hundreds and hundreds of financials from the first quarter and first half of the year, and the actual devastation and the toll that the pandemic is taking on these businesses. We've been in business 41 years of providing these different solutions, and we're locally based and nationally certified. So the programs we provide in a nutshell are the SBA 504, which I'll get to, and it's a real estate and large equipment acquisition fund. But primarily we're doing loans where instead of renting, you buy, as I said a minute ago, and the loans are in conjunction with a bank like PNC, which would put up 50% of the value of the real estate deal. And then we would put up to a maximum of 40%, which means a small business can put as little as 10% down and own their own business. And at the moment, our second trust, which sits behind that PNC first trust loan, their interest rate is under 3%, and we're fixed for 20 to 25 years. Those are, like IBM rates that you're getting from us. And when you blend our rate with the rate of the bank, you get a really good opportunity to be able to do something that makes sense. So we can talk about lease versus buy analysis. All right, so the Community Advantage Loan Program, which is the second one on this list, talked about under the HUD title Small Business Growth Fund, is a bank pool that we have, and typically we're doing deals between $25,000 and $250,000. The maximum for a startup is $100,000, but we will consider a startup. Now, startups, you have to have a business plan. If you don't have a business plan, please don't go pay somebody a fortune to write the business plan. It doesn't count as equity to increase the value of your business. And you can get it through organizations like Sharon Anderson's or SCORE, which is part of the SBA, which is the core of retired executives. We have a micro enterprise loan program, which is for working capital and equipment, and they amount to $25,000 and $50,000, somewhere in that range. Our VLT Business Flex Fund, where we're the intermediary for the State Department of Commerce under Peter Franchot, helps guarantee these loans because of the state, but they're again between 25 and 250. With the city of Bowie, for businesses in the city of Bowie, for day-to-day operations, equipment, and working capital, 25 to 50,000. And I'll show you at the end of this where we layer some of these. These are not just individual. We can sometimes put multiple loan programs together. We have an EDI fund, which requires that you agree to a certain number of jobs being created and that you must stay within the county during the period of time that you have that. And then we have a contractors program, which helps a contractor with a 25% guarantee from the county and gives them credit lines up to 24 months. And we work in conjunction with 3 banks on this: Revere, Sona, and Industrial Bank. We have a special assistance for local entrepreneurs. These are direct loans and guarantees to help startups and expansion companies only in Prince George's County who are at least 51% owned by county residents. We have the CPACE loan, which is an energy efficiency program. You have to own your property in order to do this. These are loans where you decide you want to put in a brand new mechanical and electrical system, solar panels on your roof, etc. And it ends up being added onto your tax bill with a 20-year amortization. The rate's not so cheap, but the long-term amortization keeps the payment down, and it gets on to your tax bill. So it makes it very easy to do these kind of projects, and you're funding something that should potentially help you save on your electrical bill as well. We have a green energy loan fund that we administer for Pepco Exelon, the local electrical supplier. We can provide loan guarantees or loan loss reserves up to $250,000, but this is an excellent program. If somebody's in that business that's involved in energy, commercial building energy efficiency, please contact us because we're trying to fund this and use the funds up. We're involved in the Purple Line Business Assistance Fund. We have some money for construction along the Purple Line corridor. Strive for 35 was a program that Washington Gas Light came to us about and asked us if we could find people to fund minority-owned and women-owned businesses that are serving the natural gas industry with loans up to $50,000. Again, if you know anybody involved in that business, even if it's somebody that's doing the trenching work to install cables on the projects, on the roadsides, the money's there, and we're desperately looking for recipients. The city of Mount Rainier just lowered this. It used to be up to $50,000, but it just yesterday they decided to lower this to $25,000, or Friday, I should say. But they're investing in projects that locate themselves in the city of Mount Rainier. We have a couple of great, restaurants there and other small shops. There's some, literally it's old-fashioned Main Street in Mount Rainier. It's a great place to be. And so if anyone is in that neighborhood, let us know. And our business expansion fund, which is supported by the Prince George's County Economic Development Corporation to assist small and local businesses. Lots of flexible options for bridge financing for business expansion there. So we have others, but the biggest is the SBA loan program. So if you look at your lease, and this is a property, or it could be a warehouse, it could be an office condominium, anything that's owner occupied, where you would be at least on an existing building 51% occupancy, and on a new build 61% occupancy, your business has to be in that property. We can finance this, as I told you earlier, with the split where it's a maximum of 50, 40, 10, 50% from the bank, 40% from us, and 10% down. Now, 504 loans can also be used for other purposes. If it's a special purpose property, if the people are originally from out of town, if it's a new construction, 50, 40, 10 might become 50, 35, 15, or maybe 50, 30, 20, meaning more equity from the borrower and less money from the SBA. And these are debentures that are priced after the loans are closed, and we go to Wall Street and we auction off these debentures, and big investors buy them, and that's why the rates are so low. And then you have 2 payments every month, and it's great for all these things that I just talked about, including modernization and renovations, restorations, and so on. Machinery and heavy equipment, which has a useful life of 10 years, can be added in, and some of the closing and soft costs can be added in as well, which is very, very helpful.
Can I just jump in for a second? And can
Absolutely.
you just clarify for the listeners, because we know that there's a lot of pastors on, SBA loans not for nonprofits, right?
Correct.
Okay, so not to construct your church, but if you're looking at housing or looking at apartments or building shelter out of an apartment, senior housing, things like that, can SBA loans be used for that?
Yes, and because of my involvement in a number of faith-based initiatives and my low-income housing background when I was in DC just before this job, the thing that I'll tell you is that many nonprofits create for-profit entities that are then eligible entirely for this loan program. So yes, it's just a matter of working with somebody that understands it and can steer you in the right direction.
So I want to just really foot stomp that. A lot of churches, for the pastors that are listening, for those who have nonprofits, sometimes your nonprofit status can limit you from going out and getting a loan product. Traditionally speaking, nonprofits get grants, for-profits get loans, although there are some grants that do go to for-profits. And so if you have a vision and you are a pastor and you are a church that's listening, and you have a church that's thriving, and part of your vision for 2021 is to provide housing services, let's say, or even retail services on a piece of property that you own, as Eddie just said, again, this is just a general recommendation, but the best course of action in those instances would be to develop a separate entity, potentially a separate real estate development corporation that is an LLC or a for-profit corporation, so that you can take advantage of more of a variety of loan products that are out there available to you. The SBA 504 is just one of them.
Yeah, at the beginning of the pandemic, I spoke with Al Meyer, who's the head of Bloomberg Television. I said, I want to do a show on small business, Al. And he said, Eddie, I'm sorry, but our audience are titans of industry. They don't have any interest in small business. A couple months later, when we had this thing called PPP, and suddenly the landlords were getting, a little bit tight because these small businesses couldn't pay their rent and the landlords couldn't pay the banks, and the banks were going, okay, we need help, government. Suddenly everybody who was a titan of industry wanted to know exactly what PPP and the SBA were all about. And I got a lot of phone calls at that point in time. And it's, the same thing goes with the impact of churches. Churches have situations right now where their constituency is impacted by the pandemic. The giving is down. And so a lot of faith-based organizations are looking at their assets and going, what can I do with this land that I own? And in many cases, there are, people who want to take advantage of these situations, unfortunately, and would try and get in and purchase cheap. And I say, find a good consultant to work with who can help you take those assets and do something with them that not only is of value long-term and will provide some revenue to the entity, but also will service your community as well. So when you talk about assisted living facilities, for example, they're eligible in this page that we're talking about right now. Apartment complexes are not eligible, just so you know. But there are many things that are eligible that you could use that excess ground for, and then have this long-term residual income coming off of it as long as it's properly managed and taken care of.
Right.
And that has to be for profit. Basic eligibility, I'll share this entire PowerPoint with anybody that wants it. So just let me know and I'll send it to you. But these are some of the things I've already talked about. Same thing, the loan amount, just so you know, the 504 loans are up to 5 million, but they could be as high as 5.5 million. That's just the second piece. The first piece can be even higher. So you can get a loan, easily think about, this could be up to, like a $15 million transaction. I told you about the 20 to 25 years. The terms of the loan for the bank are different. They're usually maximizing at 10 years on the first, and you'll get an amortization of 25 years, but you'll refinance that later. This is a sample of exactly what I was talking about, just to show you the typical breakdown of how this works. And why I'm going into this in this kind of detail is because, again, you'll have constituents that may need assistance that are coming to church on, and talking and saying, man, I really need to find a lender for. Just send them our way. We'll be happy to guide them in the right direction, even if we're not the right lender for them.
That's a great point. So if pastors are listening, this might not be directly relevant to the church, but your membership could be business owners. And as a result of that, recommending and sending your business owners that may be struggling a little bit and need some support, Eddie's way, Catherine's way, Alexis's way, I think is vital, so that they can take advantage of some of these products. Absolutely.
Yeah, besides just wanting to do the right thing, when I was on the board at Hopkins and I served there for three terms, 15 years, I always advocated that it was really important that networking be part of the alumni association and between various different alumni. And the reason was, if one helped the other and it was a business situation and made a great deal of money down the road, if that connection originally was from Hopkins, or in this case, I'm saying from the church, who are they going to remember at the end of the day? So when it comes to things like that, I think this becomes an added value that lay leaders can use to assist themselves. And also, when I look at that existing land, once again, that equity in existing land, so many of our faith-based institutions had land years and years and years ago at next to nothing expense in neighborhoods where the values have gone up tremendously. And you just hate to see them lose that because we're having a blip here in the history of the world.
Absolutely. So we are running a little bit out of time. It's 12:53, and I want to engage in a discussion. So for those who are listening, Eddie, you want to go through this slide, and then let's just have a quick 5 minutes for comments from everybody that's on the line and at the panel. And we will make sure that this is available to you. You can email us at pgfbab@gmail.com. That's pgfbab@gmail.com. Or you can contact Eddie. His contact information we'll put in the chat box, and we can make sure that you have the PowerPoint, the entire PowerPoint available. So talk to us about Courtyard, and then we'll just do a brief discussion and close this out, because I know everybody has
So this is where I talk about what we do to the community. What are we doing to help our community, and specifically in Prince George's County? And I want you to know that at the beginning of the year, we were the leader in new job creation across the state of Maryland, and we lost all those jobs. Right. So this was an example of a courtyard in the county that we did. It's 144 rooms, a key is a room. And what we did, our focus at FSC First is really job creation. Created 93 jobs for county residents and exceeded the 67 job creation goal for the size of the lending that we did. So we worked with a bank like PNC. They provided $12,540,000. That was the 50%. We came up with $4,890,000, which was part of the SBA 504. We were able to figure out a way to get $1.4 million from the EDI fund. From the state, we got $700,000, the VLT Flex $500,000, a microloan of $34,000, and the owners had to put in $5,016,000, their 20%, for a total of $25,000. So it's just a great example of what's going on in the community. And now that we recognize, based on my story that I told you about Bloomberg News, now that we recognize how critically important all our small businesses are to the whole channel above them, it's also how critically important all the people who have to work are to the support of our community as well. And we're also interconnected, that now we suddenly realize that. And I'll turn it over to Sharon.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you. Thank you, Eddie and Catherine and Alexis. Just a couple of points I have, and then definitely want to hear from Pastor Chapman and Pastor Brooks, and then we'll close out. That last slide, I think, was very, very critical and important for a couple of reasons. One, I don't want it to intimidate you. So you saw millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. As a small business owner, that might have been, well, I'm not going to go because I don't have that kind of money, and that's not where my business is. You can still get loans that are relevant to the dollar amounts for your businesses. But what was really relevant about that slide was the fact that there was a capital stack and there was a down payment requirement. So a lot of times we have visions and we have desires to build or expand, and we don't have the money in the bank, and we think that we're going to go to one place and they're going to fund everything. And certainly in this day and age, but just historically, my experience has been that rarely do you ever get all of your money for a project from one source, particularly if you're looking at government. Government never funds 100% of anything. They want you to put money in, and private investors even, and banks want to see what they call skin in the game. And so they want you to have invested something in it. So again, as you're planning for 2021, you want to move forward, you want to build, you want to utilize the land, as Eddie was saying, that the church has, but you don't know how to do it. Again, I would agree with him. If you're a pastor, you're not a developer, get a development consultant, get an accountant. You can use your board to help drive vision and stay honest to the vision that God has given you. But in terms of this area of expertise, again, my kids always say it's like the retort, it takes money, make money. Sometimes you got to invest in those things in order to make sure you have the right information so that when you do walk in the door, you can be successful. And then secondly, I just want to mention that we very early on, we talked about grants, but there are grants out there. And as Eddie said, one of the great things that FSC did very early on in the pandemic was have a grant product. And grant means, for those who are listening, you do not have to pay it back. And they jumped out there through their legacy fund and gave money for businesses, not nonprofits, but businesses. And so there are a couple of funding opportunities out there that I want to mention. And that is the Prince George's County Black Chamber of Commerce has the Open Door Fund, $3,000 grant to small businesses that are in good standing, and that were in business prior to, I think it's either 2018 or 2019, but had been in business at least a year. And that application is open. DC has the restaurant, or Prince George's County rather, still has the Restaurant Resiliency Fund that is out there. Is it closed?
It closed.
Oh.
Closed on Friday. We ran out of money.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Yep. Nope. So, well, no more Restaurant Resiliency Fund. And then there's DC just released a retail fund that's for hotels, retail businesses. Again, probably will close today. When you see those opportunities, you have to jump on them immediately, because even though they have deadlines, as the money's going out the door, right, because everyone needs it, it's not available. If you do not know how to write these grants, or write the information, although they're not that detailed, again, having someone to guide you in the process, I believe is essential for success. Someone did type in the chat, do you need business insurance to be an LLC? You need a business insurance if you're running a business. Period. Doesn't matter what kind of business, sole proprietor, independent contractor, you need to have insurance, right? Because
you need to have insurance for a number of things. Not only do you need the standard types of insurance, and insurance if you have a building, or insurance if you have inventory, but you need business interruption insurance.
Absolutely.
I met a lady, my cousin runs the farmers markets in and around Bethesda, Mitchell Berliner. And as you know, Mitchell Berliner has a business in Hyattsville, Berliner Foods, and so on. And he introduced me to a woman who was looking for a loan, and she makes salad dressing. And one time, a whole container of the salad dressing that she had made by this vendor was being shipped to her, and it froze. And she didn't have insurance. And as soon as it left the dock, it was her property. She had to pay for it. And you can imagine how catastrophic that was for her business. Yep. So yes,
it's
insurance,
a great point.
And having a good insurance broker who understands business insurance, not residential, is critical.
Yes, absolutely.
And we have some great ones in the county.
Great point. Great point. So definitely email Eddie. And again, you can email us at pgfbab@gmail.com. And we'll make sure, if you're interested in a good insurance company for business insurance, that we get you that information. That's a great point, Eddie. And it is critical. And look, PPP, right? Who would have thought?
Right.
So business interruption insurance could have potentially helped you throughout this process. And again, the Bible tells us to count up the costs when we're going into business. And that's one of those costs that we need to factor into our budgeting as we're making that pivot or transition. So I'm gonna, and did you want to add something, Eddie?
That's a really good point, because I think that anyone listening today needs to, first of all, a huge shout out to our Senator Ben Cardin, who has been an unbelievable proponent of small business through his efforts on the Hill, and has immediately impacted all of us in terms of our businesses. But there is a $908 billion bipartisan proposal to extend the PPP program. We don't know exactly who's going to be qualified for that, but remember, faith-based organizations were permitted for the first time in the history of the SBA to participate in PPP. So keep your eyes out for this program, which we're hoping they're going to make an announcement maybe even this week.
This week. That is my prayer, because we know that for those who were able to access it, and that was back in July. And so that money certainly has run out. And so definitely, if you weren't able to secure it because you didn't have the documentation, make sure that you begin to work on your documentation now. If you did not submit your forgiveness application, that could potentially affect, we don't know, but that could potentially affect whether you get a second one. Make sure that you start your forgiveness information now. If you have questions, Lady Wright, I hope this is okay, but again, KCG Consulting Services, that's what we do, and www.kcgllc.org. We provide that assistance with the PPPs, and I think that is important that you have. There's a number of agencies out there. KCG is just one, but if you need a PPP, if you need to know what you need to do to get ready for a PPP, if you were afraid to get a PPP last time, please call us, because I just millions of dollars for hundreds of clients that were able to survive disruption in their business by a consultation and working with someone.
Sharon, I think we have to make sure that people recognize that of the funds that you receive from PPP, the ones that get forgiven, you may own a tax on that. And so
That's right.
you need to save some of that cash for a tax obligation so you don't get hit when you perform your tax return work with your CPA this year.
That's an excellent point. So it's usually a 60-40. Again, you have to use it for the purposes that was intended, right? So mortgage, utilities, payroll, can't go out and buy a new car. So again, having a consultation and knowing how to manage this is important. One other thing I'll say about churches and nonprofits, they were permitted, but churches sometimes were flagged to explain why it wasn't being used for proselytizing. You still can't use it to proselytize. So you have to have another purpose or programming at your church in order to justify those funds. And so again, having someone to talk about the process and what's eligible and not eligible and how to respond to those questions, I think is vital, because you don't want to lose out on what I don't think ever will come again our way, which is phenomenal assistance at a very, very low interest rate, or a grant. So definitely take advantage of all this information. And want to give my last shout out to Catherine, then I'm going to turn it to Pastor Chapman for comments, and then Pastor Brooks for final comments and closing. But Eddie, this was just phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal. Thank God for the work that you've been doing over the years. You look familiar. I used to work for Mayor Williams, so our paths might have crossed in DC. But God bless you, and the work that FSC does. We really, really appreciate the tremendous commitment that you've given to the county. And the words of wisdom today have been phenomenal.
Thanks for having
Catherine,
us.
You're my heart. I ran transitional houses in DC for my church for a number of years, started the nonprofit, and Catherine Clay and PNC, they came in and did workshops for the homeless women and children, and opened bank accounts and gave them financial literacy. So the commitment that PNC has to the community, in addition to just their lending product. And again, I told her, Nicola Reed, Clinton Branch, PNC Bank, I will give her a shout out, because during the pandemic, when I had to do some small business banking, I mean, she really made sure that I could get things done. And PNC goes beyond the veil, so to speak, and really helps you where you need help. And so I really thank God for you, Catherine. You have been a tremendous resource to nonprofits and communities for so many years. So thank you for participating and bringing Alexis on to tell us about the details of banking. Anything you'd like to share before Pastor Chapman jumps in?
I'd just like to say it's been my pleasure. I am proud to work for PNC in the communities that we serve. And thank you for this opportunity.
Amen. Amen. Pastor Chapman?
Again, thanks to all of our visitors. Thanks to our chairperson, Dr. Anderson. We thank you. I want to just make sure we got a lot of information. It can be intimidating when you aren't a business person or an entrepreneur and you're stepping out on faith to do these things. But I want to encourage you to reach out, call. If I'm correct, PNC does not charge you to go sit down and meet with Miss Alexis. And FSC Bank is not going to charge you to call and meet with people. So you need to reach out. Just give them a phone call. Let them know what you're trying to do. Information is the key. And then go out there and do it. Be motivated. Go out there. You can make it. You can start a business. and you can be successful. And maybe we might need to come back and talk with PNC a little bit more, because we still didn't talk about checking accounts, savings account, money market accounts, etc. So many things that help us to make our money work for us. So that's something maybe we consider a little bit later. But keep an eye on Faith-Based Economic Committee, as we've got some great things coming to you soon. Thank you, Pastor Brooks.
Thank you to everyone. Dr. Anderson, we thank you so much. Lady Wright, I did want to give a special thanks to all the presenters today, Ed Tuvin, Alexis Jackson, and Catherine Clay. We really appreciate your, not just your subject matter expertise, but your heart, your willingness to come and share, and to be a tool to help us as faith-based organizations and the community at large. To everyone who's watching or may watch this later, I did want to make a comment just not to disqualify yourself. And even if you don't have all the information or have everything in line, it certainly is an education to go through the process and to prepare yourself for what comes later or for what you need to do. So I would encourage you to reach out, ask questions, get information, network, as Ed was saying, critically important. You know, as a pastor, I just want to say that, you know, after the creation, God created Adam, the next thing that he did was create a relationship, and it's not good for man to be alone. And so relationships are critically important for us personally, business, and also in church spiritually as well. So reach out, make connections, maintain connections, get information, reach out to Dr. Anderson, who has a wonderful company with plenty of resources, wisdom and information, so that we can, you know, grow together and, you know, take this pandemic and the situation that we're in as an opportunity to stretch out, to expand, and to change the climate of your life, your business, and the landscape that you're in. So thank you to everyone, and I appreciate you all.
Well, what a wonderful time we had together. Again, we thank you, Lady Wright. Thank you so much, Pastor McNeil. Thank you, County Executive Angela also Brooks. Thank you. Thank you. Everyone have a happy and safe and blessed Christmas and holiday, and we'll see you in January. Again, pgfbab@gmail.com. Comments, if there's any information that you would like the Faith-Based Advisory Board or this committee to share coming up in January or for next year, please give us an email. We'd love to hear from you. Again, God bless you and thank you all, and have a great and prosperous day. Bye-bye.